days still.
Yeah.
That's his right. People don't have to wear a mask, but it's not unusual to see somebody with an N95, looks like he's wearing a KN95, into a bank.
Yeah. And I wonder if he's done it before. He's probably done the same exact thing before without any kind of incident. Our next comment comes from Sid. I don't see how anyone could believe it was a robbery attempt, but at the same time, using a note is a common tactic of robbers. Maybe she was new. Why not just tell her? Okay, maybe again, that could come to the mask issue, all those communication problems. But I want to go back to something you said about the police. Again, I hate to criticize police. They have a difficult job. But the first thing they do when they walk in and they handcuff him, I want to go back to what you mentioned and see if you can elaborate on that. Was that really necessary under these circumstances? This could have gone sideways very quickly.
Well, I'm sure you'll get a prosecutor or police officer on that who'll disagree with what I'm about to say, and they'll say, well, they didn't know the situation, they were told it's a bank robbery, so for everybody's safety. But when the police come in and they see a gentleman just standing there, not making a scene, didn't draw a weapon, no information he had a weapon, and just handed over a note, all they could have done to secure the scene is just pat him down for their safety. He's not doing anything to create a problem. And just ask him questions. Keep his hands up.
Keep his hands up.
Make sure he doesn't reach for anything.
And it turned out well. So thank you, Lawrence, for being with me tonight. Truly appreciate all your insights. We'll get you back on again soon. I'm Michael Ayala.
Love being on your show.
All right. It's a pleasure being with you. Coming up next in Closing Arguments, Vinnie Politan takes a look at new details in the Alec Baldwin shooting. Keep it right here on Quick.
Shoot the ball, Erica.
There's a lot of letters.
She's already got HALFOFF.
Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's. Official breakfast of March Madness.
In Santa Fe, New Mexico, new developments in the Alec Baldwin shooting case. Baldwin has outlined his most detailed account of his version of what happened when he shot and killed Helena Hutchins. We take a closer look to see what it may mean in the ongoing criminal investigation. In Chicago, Illinois, more fallout from actor Jussie Smollett's jail sentence and in-court outburst. We have the latest.
I am not suicide. I am innocent.
On the docket tonight in Waukesha, Wisconsin, the accused Christmas parade killer back in court as his defense team prepares for his upcoming trial.
I wanted to make some disclosures out of an abundance of caution.
Plus, former UFC champ Kane Velasquez is locked up without bond, charged with the attempted murder of a man charged with molesting his 4-year-old son. The man accused of molestation was let out of jail on supervised release. Tonight's 13th juror question: who is more dangerous? The father charged with the attempted murder of the alleged child molester, or the alleged child molester?
I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And you know, I've been with Court TV for a while, right? I've covered a lot of trials through the years. And I want to focus off the top here on celebrities. When celebrities end up in court, when celebrities end up in legal trouble. You know, when I first started years ago and early on, celebrities seem to always come out of things pretty clean, right? Well, everyone remembers O.J. Simpson, Robert Blake, Michael Jackson. Jason Williams was standing in a room. He was a basketball player and shot and killed his limo driver. Said it was an accident. The jury was hung on half of the counts in that case. So I saw it time after time after time earlier in my court TV career that celebrities did very, very well inside the courtroom. And I always wondered why. Why is it? Why do they give them the benefit of the doubt? Well, maybe they kind of like them, or they're used to the attention, they're used to the focus, and they just come off better inside a courtroom, whether or not they testify or don't testify. And maybe you're more likely to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's just the money that they have to get the great legal representation and the great investigation of their own case, and maybe battle prosecutors on a more even playing field. I never really could pinpoint exactly what it was, but it was real. It was real that celebrities did well. More recently, I feel like the tide is turning a little bit. Like, it's not necessarily a plus anymore to be a celebrity when you've got legal issues, legal trouble. That there's more of an atmosphere these days of holding people accountable, especially people who are powerful, people who are rich, people who are famous. And I think there's a lot more of that now. So now let's turn to the first celebrity case of the night, which is Alec Baldwin. And it's unrefuted that Alec Baldwin shot and killed Helena Hutchins, the cinematographer from the movie that he was an executive producer of and a movie that he was the absolute star of. The gun was in his hand, the gun went off, and it killed Helena Hutchins. So in this case, I thought initially that, it would be an easy investigation. We'd kind of figure out what happened. There were so many people there, but it's anything but simple at this point. The criminal investigation is still going on, and we're trying to uncover what happened. And there now is a parallel civil litigation that is taking place. And the big difference between civil litigation and criminal investigation is that the civil stuff, everyone's kind of playing their cards out in public, right? Making their allegations and kind of laying out what they believe happened. And unbelievably, in this case, there is a serious discrepancy between the versions of what happened when Alec Baldwin shot and killed Helena Hutchins. I want to start by showing you the digital recreation of that shooting. And this is based on the complaint filed by Helena's family, who is suing for wrongful death. Okay, so this is the version of what happened according to the victim in the case.
Industry standards required Mr. Baldwin to be trained and qualified in safe handling and proper firing procedures before accepting the revolver. Mr. Baldwin refused weapons training on how to perform a cross draw, the type of gun draw he was about to perform in the church. The first rule for safety with firearms on a production set required Mr. Baldwin to treat all firearms as if they were loaded and refrain from pointing a firearm at anyone. The industry standard required Mr. Baldwin to remember that any person or object at which he points a firearm could be destroyed.
All right, I watched that and I listened to the narration, which outlines, again, the case of Helena's family, who has filed suit against Alec Baldwin and others in this case. So that's their version of what happened. Now, there was a filing done by Alec Baldwin, not a video recreation, but a filing in court outlining his version of what happened there. Let me read it for you to you because it's somewhat different. Baldwin was sitting in a church pew looking at Hutchins. Baldwin held the gun, which Halls had just announced was safe, in his hand. Hutchins was standing camera right, Baldwin's left, next to the camera operator, and looking back and forth between Baldwin to her right and the camera operator's monitor to her left. Baldwin asked Hutchins what she would like to see to prepare her camera angle for the scene. Baldwin did not perform a, quote, cross draw of the gun. He pulled the gun out slowly without issue and held it still before Hutchins began giving any directions to him. She directed Baldwin to hold the gun higher to a point where it was directed toward her. She was looking carefully at the monitor and then Baldwin and then back again as she gave these instructions. Baldwin asked Hutchins whether she wanted to see him cock the gun as the script required. She responded yes. Baldwin tipped the gun down somewhat so that the lens of the camera would be able to focus on his hand's action on the top of the gun. Baldwin then pulled back the hammer, but not far enough to actually cock the gun. When Baldwin let go of the hammer, the gun went off. As later became known, a live bullet discharged from the gun and struck Hutchins, traveling through her body and striking Souza in the shoulder. Both Hutchins and Souza fell to the ground. That's different than that video recreation. So what I want to do tonight is evaluate both scenarios here and not through the lens, no pun intended, but not through the lens of, is there civil liability? I don't want to debate the lawsuit. I want to debate criminal liability in this case against Alec Baldwin. I don't want to talk about the armorer. I don't want to talk to the person who supplied the dummy rounds or the live rounds. That's a discussion for another night. Right now, I'm focusing on Alec Baldwin's potential criminal liability as we look at events through the eyes of the victim and then through the eyes of Alec Baldwin. Got to bring in the think tank to do this, though. Joining us tonight in New York City, former senior homicide prosecutor Bernardo Villalona. In Los Angeles, California, Deputy Public Defender for Los Angeles County, Philip Dubé. And in San Diego, California, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Brian Watkins. And of course, as always, you can contact Brian Watkins at brianwatkinslaw.com. Great to see everyone on this Friday night. Let's begin with that video recreation, Bernardo Villalona. As we watch that, did you see a crime taking place?
I didn't see a crime taking place by watching that video recreation. Let's just be clear, it would be difficult to even get that into evidence at a trial.
No, not that you're getting it into evidence. In a civil case, you'll be able to get that in. You might even be able to get it in a criminal case. I've seen it done in criminal cases down in North Carolina. I saw it happen. But here's my question. Based upon what they are saying happened here, is that a crime?
I don't see it as a crime. I don't see criminal negligence or criminal recklessness at this point. I want to see what were in his text messages, what was recovered from his phone, to see what words were used prior and after by Alec Baldwin.
All right, Philip Dubé, you're out there in Hollywood. This case won't be in Hollywood, but it's a Hollywood type of case. Do you see criminal liability based upon that video recreation and what they're saying, which is, yeah, I refused the cross-draw training, refused to do it, and this is what happened?
No. You cannot impute an industry standard to his scienter or his knowledge as to whether or not he even had a firearm, let alone a loaded one. If he truly did not know that he had a loaded gun, then it doesn't really matter what he did with it. Do you see? You know, typically...
Can I ask you something, Philip? Can I ask you something along those lines? Sure. If Brian Watkins came up to your office and handed you a gun and said it's not loaded, and you took his word for it, you took the gun and you squeezed the trigger while you were pointing it at someone and they died, you would be clear because Brian Watkins told you that it wasn't loaded?
No, because you would not expect that type of instrumentality in a law office where I work. But when you're on a movie set doing a country western.
Okay, let me give you one more, Philip. I just want to give you one more. Let's say we're at the precinct, okay? Bunch of cops, all trained in firearms. One of my fellow cops hands me a gun, says, oh, yeah, it's not loaded. I point it at one of my fellow officers, squeeze the trigger, and shoot and kill him. We're at work. We're at work, just like Alec Baldwin's at work. The person who handed me gun is trained in firearms, just like the armorer. Is that police officer free and clear of any criminal responsibility?
No, that could be absolutely an implied malice intentional homicide, meaning there was no express intent to kill, but the act is so reckless in that scenario, you have to assume that that gun's going to be loaded. You start pointing it at people and pulling a trigger. If it goes off, I mean, that's called murder, frankly. That is the old abandoned heart, you know, the malignant heart.
But he told me it wasn't loaded.
Well, that's a different situation. Again, it goes to his scienter. If he truly believed at the time, and if it was reasonable, that that gun was not loaded and all he's doing is just toying around with it, it could have been a prop for all he knew. Remember, they're not playing Russian roulette where they're told ahead of time, you know what, there is a live round and you're, rolling the dice when you pull that trigger. So therefore, you assume the risk that by toying with it, it could go off. But on this fact pattern, I don't see it. And frankly, not to skirt the issue, I'm not even sure that the civil suit has viability.
We're not going to go there yet. We're not going to go there yet. We'll get there at some point. Let me ask you, Brian Watkins, do you agree with Bernardo? Do you agree with Philip? They have cleared Alec Baldwin.
Yes, I got to agree with them. You know, what the video does not show is what's going on in Alec Baldwin's mind. What did he know? What was his intent? And so the fact that he's on a movie set, and don't forget, movies aren't real, and the guns that they use in movies aren't real.
No, they're real guns. They're real guns.
They're firing blanks, so they don't have live cartridges in them. And so never, when you see a shootout in a movie, is it a real shootout with live ammunition. And so there's no reason for Alex to believe that it would be loaded with live ammunition. This is an experienced actor who is going to testify of every movie set I've ever been on and every gun I've ever held. It's never, ever had live ammunition in it. So why would I think this one had live ammunition in it? So clearly, we do not prosecute people for accidents, except the poor officer that went for a taser instead of her gun. I mean, went for a gun instead of her taser. But other than that, we do not prosecute people for negligence or accidents. So there's no criminal liability here. Clearly civil, but not criminal.
Okay. All right, let's get to based upon what Alec Baldwin is saying, because none of you believe there's any criminal responsibility, based upon what Alec Baldwin is saying, would that absolve him of all civil liability as well, Bernarda? Like, he doesn't pay a dime?
No, I doubt it. I highly doubt it, especially since he was the head boss of this movie being taped. So he's always going to be named as the #1 party because he has the deepest pockets. And also they're going to hold him responsible for everything that happens at the set because it's under his guise. However, I will say what we need Alec Baldwin to do is stop talking to the media.
No, he's filing papers here. He's filing papers. He talked to the media last week.
Exactly, but his interviews, all of that is going to be used against him. Shut it, cállate, no more talking.
But that gets us to the truth.
For you.
When the people being investigated speak, it gets us closer to the truth. All right, Philip Dubé, I want you to hear a statement from Helena Hutchins' family attorney, okay, responding to Alec Baldwin's filings. Alec Baldwin, once again, is trying to avoid liability and accountability for his reckless actions before and on October 21st that resulted in the death of Helena Hutchins, as demonstrated by today's arbitration demand for indemnification from the Rust Production Company. Baldwin's disclosure of personal texts with Matt Hutchins is irrelevant to his demand for arbitration and fails to demonstrate anything other than Hutchins' dignity in his engagement with Baldwin. It is shameful that Baldwin claims Hutchins' actions in filing a wrongful death lawsuit derailed the completion of Rust. That's the movie. The only action that ended the film's production was Baldwin's killing of Helena Hutchins. So, Philip, your thoughts about civil liability, because you don't think there's even civil liability for Alec Baldwin.
Not for Alec Baldwin. I think that the Hutchins family's claim is preempted by workers' compensation law. And the reason why, this occurred on the set, on a production set, albeit in New Mexico. And I believe California is in accord with what's called the Delgado Doctrine. The only exception...
He's breaking out the Delgado Doctrine tonight, Brian. I can't believe this. Go ahead, continue.
No, I'm serious, though.
I know.
There is an exception where you lose the benefit of workers' comp coverage by your carrier if the employer deliberately puts the employee in an unnecessarily dangerous situation where death or great bodily injury could occur. So again, it goes back to the scienter. If he thought he had a prop, popping up a prop without a live round in it that might have a dummy in it, that's inherent in the risks of working on a movie set when you're making a Western. So I don't believe that anybody intentionally put Miss Hutchins in a dangerous or unnecessarily dangerous situation where great bodily injury or death could occur. It's all inherent in the risks of the workplace and working on a movie set. Now, having said that, it does mean there could be liability, but on the part of the carrier that provides the workers' comp coverage. But it should not come out of Mr. Baldwin's pocket, in my opinion.
Philip Dubé on top of his game tonight. That's the bottom line to all of this. I mean, he went to a place I didn't even think we were going with the workers' comp, but that's a great argument. Unbelievable argument. All right, Brian Watkins.
I gotta disagree with Philip, though.
You can disagree with him, but we got to move on to the next segment. When we come back, Brian Watkins, I need your reaction tonight to what happened yesterday in Chicago, Illinois. Jussie Smollett sentenced 150 days for his hate crime hoax, and then the outburst.
right now.
I'm sentencing you to 30 months felony probation, and the probation is going to be to this court. You're going to be allowed to travel wherever you want. You do not have to live in the state of Illinois. You can report by phone. I know that if you're going to try to make a living and do some of the things you do, you may have to go to other places, New York and Los Angeles. You can do those things. You will pay restitution to the city of Chicago in the amount of $120,106. You are fined $25,000, which is the maximum fine. And you will spend the first 150 days of your sentence in the Cook County Jail.
No, I would just like to say to Your Honor that I am not suicidal. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay.
I am not suicidal.
Okay.
I am not suicidal. I am innocent, and I am not suicidal. If I did this, then it means that I stuck my fist in the fears of Black Americans in this country for over 400 years and the fears of the LGBTQ community. Your Honor, I respect you and I respect the jury, but I did not do this, and I am not suicidal. And if anything happens to me when I go in there, I did not do it to myself, and you must all know that. I respect you, Your Honor. I respect your decision. Jail time. I am not suicidal. I am not suicidal.
Stop laughing about Black.
I am not suicidal, and I am innocent. I could have said that I was guilty a long time ago.
Absolutely shocking moments last night right here on Closing Arguments. All that happening. Unbelievable. Jussie Smollett went to the Cook County Jail. He has a new mugshot picture, and, you know, obviously he doesn't look happy. He shouldn't look happy. He's going to jail for 150 days. Also, we've got a statement from the sheriff. You know, what is life going to be like for Jussie Smollett? And again, it's different. You know, for someone who has lived the life that he's been living the last several years. I mean, super successful guy, making millions of dollars. I mean, it's a much different life in jail. Here's what the sheriff says. Mr. Smollett is not being held in solitary confinement. The use of solitary confinement was abolished at the Cook County Jail in 2016, and any claims that he's being held in this manner are false. Mr. Smollett is being housed in his own cell, which is monitored by security cameras in the cell and by an officer wearing a body-worn camera who is stationed at the entrance of the cell to ensure that Mr. Smollett is under direct observation at all times. As with all detained persons, Mr. Smollett is entitled to have substantial time out of his cell in the common areas on the tier where he is housed, where he's able to use the telephone, watch television, and interact with the staff. During such times out of the cell, other detainees will not be present in the common areas. So it looks like he's going to have some level of protective custody inside the Cook County Jail. Let's bring back in our think tank, Bernardo Villalona, Philip Dubé, Brian Watkins. Brian, you know, as I'm watching this last night, I'm wondering, I got to do this tomorrow night because I got to know what Brian thinks of what just happened in that court. What's your analysis of what happened in that moment as he's being sentenced?
I think he may be suicidal. I don't know. To have an outburst like that in court for, you know, after you've been sentenced, you know, I don't even know what to say. I mean, if I was his lawyer, I would have grabbed him by the neck and put his head down on the desk and told him to shut up. You know, and this is, of course, he wants to appeal this situation, but this is not a good showing for him. And yet he's still getting, you know, special treatment because he's getting protective custody for pretty much no reason. You know, I know celebrities sometimes get protective custody, but I don't know what the reason he'd be receiving protective custody is. He committed a crime. He goes to jail like everybody else. He should, at least.
Philip Dubé, your thoughts about what happened to Jussie Smollett, the sentence, the Cook County treatment that he's getting?
I actually called 90 days. So, you know, to go from 3 to 5 months is probably reasonable under the circumstances. Now, I think he tried to treat that jail as if it were like theater in the round. This was his moment in time. He's like Lady Macbeth there, out damn spot. You know, to let the world know that he is the next great actor, that he is that masochistic, narcissistic Jussie Smollett who made that grand exit going off to his jail cell. Now, to be fair, it was misdemeanor conduct. In most jurisdictions, when you make a false report and nobody is arrested as a result of it, you might end up with a little probation without any jail time. But in the state of Illinois, apparently it is a felony. To get 5 months when your exposure is 3 years, frankly, is probably a gift.
Bernarda, what was your take on everything that happened yesterday? It really went in a direction I was not expecting.
No, I got to tell you, Vinny, that I called it in December. I definitely thought that Jussie Smollett was going to receive some kind of prison sentence just because of everything that entailed of the crime itself, that he made it a hoax hate crime, as well as he made it a hoax having to deal with him being gay. And aside from that, also that the judge did not appreciate when he testified that he was not credible at all and made a mockery of the system. So I just knew that this judge was going to sentence him to jail. In addition, let's remember that this judge at no point during the trial or during the verdict allowed cameras in the courtroom. But he made it a point during the sentencing to open up that courtroom so that sentence can be live and he can send to the world his message about this case and how he felt about it and how he felt about Jussie Smollett. Now, in regards to Jussie Smollett and his outbursts, I have to tell you this, my take on it. Number one, he was definitely shocked that he was sentenced to jail. It was like he wasn't prepared for it, or that his attorneys told him it's highly unlikely that he will be sentenced to jail, which is something I would not have told him. Aside from that, Jussie Smollett is scared of being in jail. Let's not forget, we hear about those cases of people that supposedly commit suicide in jail. Jeffrey Epstein, Sandra Bland. Jussie Smollett is telling you, look, if they tell you I committed suicide in jail, that did not happen. Believe it, it did not happen, and it needs to be looked into. But again, I think that the sentence of 150 days in jail is a bit extreme in this case. I wasn't expecting that length of time.
So in this case, it was kind of unique. The victim was really the city of Chicago. So the mayor had a statement afterwards, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. She said, the criminal conviction of Jussie Smollett by a jury of his peers and today's sentencing should send a clear message to everyone in the city of Chicago that false claims and allegations will not be tolerated. The malicious and wholly fabricated claims made by Mr. Smollett resulted in over 1,500 hours of police work that cost the city over $130,000 in police overtime. The city feels vindicated in today's ruling that he's being held accountable and that we will appropriately receive restitution for his actions. You know, Brian, this whole thing I mean, originally, it was the strangest prosecution when the original prosecutor, Kim Fox, had the case before they brought in the special prosecutor, where Jussie Smollett it was just like everything was dismissed, and I think he did maybe a community service and gave $10,000 to someone. I don't know who. But it had a strange procedural history. Do you feel like he was targeted because he was a celebrity in the end, or was this just justified as to what should happen to someone who reports and creates a fake hate crime?
You know, it's both. You know, he was targeted because he was a celebrity, but on the other hand, this case is so big and everybody knew about this hoax because he was a celebrity. If the average person out there files a false police report, it doesn't affect the city in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't cost $1,500 or, $15,000 out, man hours and $130,000 on overtime pay when your average citizen, lies to the police and creates a false police report. So the fact that he wanted the attention to this hoax is what brought him the attention and brought him that 150-day jail sentence. You want the attention, you're going to get it. You're going to be made an example of. And that's what happened. That's what the judge did.
Message was sent. All right. Think Tank staying with us. Still ahead.
On the docket tonight in Waukesha, Wisconsin, the accused Christmas parade killer back in court as his defense team prepares for his upcoming trial. Plus, former UFC champ Kane Velasquez is locked up without bond, charged with the attempted murder of a man charged with molesting his 4-year-old son. The man accused of molestation was let out of jail on supervised release. Tonight's 13th juror question: who's more dangerous, the father charged with the attempted murder of the alleged child molester or the alleged child molester?
At Nutrafol.com.
On the docket tonight, the Waukesha Parade Massacre. You remember this holiday parade? That car goes barreling through. Darrell Brooks has been charged in the case. Joy Lim Nakrin, Court TV crime and justice reporter, has the story.
It was a holiday celebration that turned into an unthinkable tragedy. A car plowed through bystanders at Waukesha's annual Christmas parade last November, killing 6, including a child, and injuring dozens more.
We have established a risk assessment system in Milwaukee County.
According to police, the car was driven by this man, Daryl Brooks. At the time of the incident, he was out on bail on a domestic violence offense, one of 2 charges he was facing. Brooks allegedly ran over his ex-girlfriend with the same SUV, breaking her leg.
Mr. Brooks is arrested again, and this time it's for a very serious domestic violence offense.
His release on a $1,000 bond is raising some challenging questions for Milwaukee District Attorney John Chisholm, who conceded the bail should have been higher because Brooks was considered a, quote, high-risk suspect.
She looked at the previous bail, saw that it was $500, and she doubled it. That's it. That's a mistake. That's human error. And it just set in motion a chain of events that resulted in a tragedy.
It's a tragedy that still has the community reeling and trying to heal. Faith in you. The city recently distributed blue light bulbs in a gesture of solidarity. City leaders started the Blue Light campaign to show support for the injured and those still grieving. Brooks faces 77 criminal charges, including 6 counts of intentional homicide, 61 counts of recklessly endangering safety, and 6 counts of hit and run, resulting in death.
Hate and evil, but it has arrived and it's shown what it can do. But now it's time for love to show how it can heal and be very present.
This was such a difficult day for everyone in that community, and they're still reeling in Waukesha. It was a Christmas parade, of all things. One big issue in the case is, why was this guy even out on bond? Shouldn't have been out on bond. Why was he even allowed to drive? I mean, the case that he had gotten in trouble for was using his car against his ex as a tool of domestic violence, using his car. So why did he? I mean, let's put that aside for just a second. There was another issue that came up today in court, because he was back in court today, and it involves the judge and whether or not this judge should be sitting on the case. Take a listen.
As the parties are aware, the state filed a letter on the 7th advising the court or wanting to make the court aware that I had some familiarity with the father of victim C. Victim C is one of the homicide victims. I wanted to make some disclosures out of an abundance of caution, and as encouraged in the comments to Supreme Court Rule 60.04 sub 4, which talks about notification of information on the record to the parties when that information might be considered by the parties relevant to the question of recusal. First and foremost, this court believes it absolutely can and will be fair and impartial to both sides in this case.
Okay, so we've got a judge here, the think tank back with us. We've got a judge here who knows the father of one of the victims. There's some relationship there. The last thing you ever want to do is retry a case, right? I mean, I think there's strong evidence in this case. But anyway, Bernardo, your thoughts about the judge? Should the judge step aside here out of an abundance of caution so this community doesn't have to go through this trial more than once?
You would hope that a judge will step aside, but then again, you got to think that a judge is charged to be fair and impartial in the case that is before her. So she had to do her duty in the sense that she had to let both parties know that there is a relation in terms of that she does know one of the parties in this case. And it will ultimately be up to the defendant whether he wants to waive that potential conflict or not. So if the defense is seeking for her to be removed, in this case, I will ask for her to be removed, because you don't want to take that chance that this will be reversed upon a conviction and cause that hurt to that family again.
Brian Watkins, I can see that always being a little difficult for one of the attorneys involved, asking the judge to be removed, because then if the judge isn't removed, the judge knows that you asked for the judge to be removed. So how would you approach this issue? Do you think this judge is good to go?
You know, if I'm his defense attorney, I let the judge preside over the case, and I have an appeal in my pocket if I lose, so I get another bite at the apple. So I believe if I'm the judge, I recuse myself, because it is an appealable issue, and it's going to be an issue once he gets convicted, because I believe the evidence is really strong in this situation, in this case. And so if I'm the judge, yeah, as a butt of conscience, you don't want any problems. You don't want to create an appellate issue. So I would just recuse myself. If I'm the defense attorney, I don't say anything. I let the judge not recuse herself, and then I get my other second bite at the apple once I lose the first time.
Let me, Philip, I have another question for you, and this has to do with, I think, another big issue in this case, because we know the impact that it had on that community. The defense is asking for a change of venue, saying an impartial trial cannot be held in Waukesha County. The effects of this incident on the Waukesha community and its collective response are so profound and pervasive that venue must be changed to ensure that Darrell Brooks receives an impartial jury. Your thoughts, Philip? Do you try to get a jury first and then see what potential jurors are saying? Or do you just move it maybe to Kenosha?
I don't think it's worth the risk to go forward in that jurisdiction. You know, even though the county might acreage-wise be rather large, demographically, they're relatively small populations. Wisconsin is, I wouldn't say it's a sparsely populated state, but it's certainly not as densely populated as, you know, Florida, New York, and California. Chances are the jury pool is going to know somebody who is connected with that mayhem. It's just not worth the risk. And, you know, let's be honest here. This was pretty horrific. What would be the harm just to get it out of that jurisdiction and bring in a veneer panel, if you will, that hasn't really heard much about the case? And frankly, even though it did make national news, it kind of came and went and fizzled, and it might be sort of revitalized once they start jury selection. And then the locals might try to go on the net, read the paper, listen to more news reports. And, you know, I don't care what people say. These news stories do have sort of like an undercurrent, if you will, of implicit bias, even though the veneermen might say that they can be fair and impartial. They are implicitly biased just because there is this hidden influence coming from all the media coverage.
Yeah, but I will say this, though. I was just checking the numbers. This show, very popular in Wisconsin, so we might be, you know. Anyway, we just lay out the facts. I mean, we're not laying out things that aren't facts in this case. But let me ask you, Bernardo, to me, the big issue in this entire case was the fact that he was out on bond to begin with, and he's driving the car that was the weapon in the other allegation. I mean, shouldn't our system do something a little bit better? Like it's a little bit foreseeable here?
See, but that's the problem with all this bail reform going on around the entire country, is that it's more leaning towards judges going with something that doesn't require bail or confinement. So in this case, of course, worst case scenario, and the worst thing that a judge, and I just talked about this earlier this week, ever want to happen, that a person they allow to be released all of a sudden is on the front page because they've killed someone. That is the worst thing you want to see happen. In terms of how do you change that? You change that by changing the bail conditions, the bail law through the legislature to see if they can use that term dangerousness as one of the factors in determining whether bail should be set and what type of bail should be set or what amount of bail should be set. So that way it can be up to the discretion of the judge.
All right, when we come back, our 13th juror is all about bail. It's about bond. It's about being out. This is Kane Velasquez, a former UFC champ. Big dude. His son was allegedly molested by a man who was set free from jail after the charges came down. You know, just had to, it was monitored release. He then now is charged with going after that man, shooting into his car. It's attempted murder is the charge against him. He's being held without bond for attempting to kill the man accused of molesting his 4-year-old. My question tonight, who's more dangerous? This man or the man accused of molesting his son? We'll be right back.
There's cash back in everything you buy.
That is former UFC champ Kane Velasquez, who is in jail, denied bail for attempted murder. The alleged victim in his case, the man that he allegedly shot at in his vehicle, is a man who's been charged with molesting Kane Velasquez's 4-year-old son. Now, after that man accused of molesting the 4-year-old child was charged, he was released on monitored release from jail. But Kane Velasquez has been locked up and denied bail. So my question to you today on social media was, who's more dangerous, Kane Velasquez, the dad, or the man accused of molesting his son? We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day, which comes to us from Sue, who says Kane Velasquez is only dangerous to the man who molested his son. I don't understand why that man is out on bond. He should be locked up to protect innocent children and himself from parents who want to do him harm. Let's bring back in the think tank. Philip Dubé, your thoughts about this. You know, who's more dangerous out on the streets?
Oh, that pedophile, of course. Would you want him near a school or a park or in your neighborhood? Not at all. And frankly, I am so happy that Mark Garrigus got this case, because I know he'll go to the mat for him. Let me tell you what the good news is with these charges, because this is out our way in California. I think it's out of Santa Clara County, which is up not too far from the Bay Area. I truly believe that at most he is guilty of an attempted voluntary manslaughter. Attempted, because I don't think he ever cooled off from that heat of passion after finding out that his kid had been fondled or however molested that child was. That cooling off period can last a long time, and I don't think a parent ever cools off after that type of an event. But having said that, the voluntary manslaughter, an attempt, I believe only has a max of 5.5 years. And obviously that is a win in the defense world, because if he goes down on a regular attempt murder by firearm, that could carry life. The other good news is that because it was by firearm, they would only tack on, you know, a maximum, I believe, of 10 years. So his max really is about 15 when he is facing life. I pray and hope that Mark can settle this and avoid a trial, but we'll see.
Brian Watkins, who's more dangerous out on the streets? Your thoughts?
You know, absolutely, it's the pedophile. You know, that's the problem with the bail reform movement. It actually started out here in California, up there in Santa Clara County. And up there in Santa Clara County, they were trying to get rid of bail and basically wanted everybody out, including child molesters. But the bail system does work, but you also need a good judge. The judge needs to recognize that what's a danger to society? What's a danger to society is someone who commits a crime against a random individual, some random member of society, versus a person who commits a specific crime against an individual for a specific reason, such as what Kane Velasquez did. So he's not a danger to society, clearly, just like the viewer said, he's a danger to the guy that molested his daughter, but the child molester did it to a random innocent victim, a member of society. We need to balance both of those. Kane needs to be out, the child molester needs to be in with bail. Santa Clara needs to realize no bail does not work. We need bail, and we need it to work, and we need judges to enforce bail.
Bernarda?
The pedophile, and this is exactly why I say that dangerousness standards should be allowed when we're declaring whether someone should be set for bail. With the pedophile and dealing with young kids, kids are not in a position to protect themselves. Kids are not in a position sometimes to even know what's happening to them is wrong. So the pedophile is the clear danger here. And, you know, I will even represent the father of that child because of what this pedophile did to his son.
Absolutely, and we'll continue to track this case and bring you the latest updates as they come through. But right now, Kane Velasquez locked up. Big thank you tonight, Bernarda Villalona, Philip Dubé, Brian Watkins on a Friday night. Great job. Thank you so much. We'll see you again really, really soon.
Thanks, Vinnie.
All right, folks, when we come back, we'll bring in our investigators and dig into the Alec Baldwin shooting, his version now detailed. We'll compare it to the video next.
Download Earnin.
In Santa Fe, New Mexico, new developments in the Alec Baldwin shooting case. Baldwin has outlined his most detailed account of his version of what happened when he shot and killed Helena Hutchins. We take a closer look to see what it may mean in the ongoing criminal investigation. In tonight's Unsolved Case File in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, Johnny Jackson was on a family fun weekend trip when he was gunned down in July of 2020. And now, almost 2 years later, his family is still searching for justice.
He was like the heart of our family.
In Atlanta, Georgia, the director of the smash hit movie Black Panther goes to a bank to withdraw some cash from his own account. He writes a note to the teller, who then calls police. We break down this case with our own law enforcement experts.
I just don't feel comfortable about this transaction.
And in Los Angeles, California, police pursue an armed suspect and take him down with a taser. We take a look at the video during crime time. Buckle your seatbelts. This hour of closing arguments starts right now.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. I want to begin this hour and dive a little deeper into the Alec Baldwin shooting. Now, we've been covering this story since the beginning, but we keep getting more and more information, more and more details. And what has become very clear to me is that there is no agreement about what actually happened, which to me is kind of shocking because there are a bunch of witnesses. One of the shooting victims survived. There are people there. There was a camera. I guess the camera was not rolling, but we've got very different versions about what exactly was happening, who was saying what. And to me, this case is going to be a difficult criminal investigation because remember that criminal investigation is going on. If you've got people saying, no, this happened, no, this happened, now, as an investigator, you've got to figure out, well, whose version of what happened is the correct version here? Who's telling me the truth? Who remembers it more accurately? And this is a very fine-tuned, subtle case because we're not talking about a traditional criminal case, right? Where someone says, hey, I'm going to commit a crime, let me go do it, right? No, this is a criminal investigation into something that is clearly an accident. But some accidents are crimes. Ask former officer Kim Potter, who's in jail tonight out in Minnesota. So that's what this is about. Was his conduct so reckless that it crossed the line into a space where his liberty needs to be taken away? And I'm talking about Alec Baldwin. Tonight, I'm not talking about the armorer. I'm not talking about whoever supplied the live rounds, whoever put those live rounds in the box that the armorer thought were the dummy rounds, not who loaded the gun, not who checked or was supposed to check the gun. No, I'm talking about the person who was holding the gun, the person who fired the gun, the person who killed Helena Hutchins. Now, there might be other responsibility. It might even be greater than Alec Baldwin's, but tonight we're focusing on Alec Baldwin. Let me begin with one side of the equation here, because there is, while this criminal investigation is going on, there is civil litigation taking place. Alec Baldwin, the producers of Rust, others involved in all this are all being sued. And the lawsuit, one of the lawsuits is wrongful death by Helena Hutchins' family, which they're entitled to do, right? If there was clearly damage, there's a child that's growing up without a mother, there's a lot of impact that all this has. So what they've done, they filed their complaint, but they've also put together a video recreation, sort of an animation explaining or trying to demonstrate their version of what happened when Alec Baldwin shot and killed Helena Hutchins. So let's start by taking a look at a part of that video.
Industry standard.
It was that quick, according to the attorneys for Helena Hutchins' family. But you saw what happened there. Let me bring in my guests tonight because they know a lot about handling firearms and investigating cases. Joining me tonight in Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator, former police officer Rob Joseph. And in New York, private investigator, founder of Black Ops Private Investigators, and former New York City police officer Manuel Gomez is with us. Great to have you both here tonight. I really want to call upon your experience, your expertise. Let's start with what we just saw, that short 35-second video animation recreation. What stands out to you, Rob Joseph, when you look at that and what Helena Hutchins' family's attorney is saying happened when Helena Hutchins was shot and killed by Alec Baldwin?
Well, you know, from my experience in being an on-set consultant in the use of firearms on movies, clearly, you know, we've talked about this before. There are absolutely none of the standards, industry standards, followed in this. And usually cameras are behind plexiglass. They're out of the line of fire. You don't ever point a gun at anyone on the set. Sometimes they'll point them directly at the monitor, but they ensure that nobody's there. And the way they kind of put this animation recreation together just kind of shows the reckless nature of how this was handled on set. And that just stands out to me. On the sets that I've been on, even the ones with Baldwin brothers that were cop shoot 'em up shows, none of those standards were followed on this. So that just stands out. And obviously this recreation is to, because it's a civil case, is to, you know, kind of get everybody's emotions going about, you know, how tragic, how sudden, how reckless this is.
Manuel, your thoughts, watching that recreation of their version of what happened here, from your perspective, what are you seeing?
Well, you know, just to say from the beginning, you know, he should not have been allowed to even to film this movie, because the fact was he disregarded all the safety training that was put in place so that measures like this wouldn't happen, accidents like this wouldn't happen. And Alec Baldwin is a seasoned actor who's had numerous experience on other films and handling guns. Again, like the other investigator said, I agree with him 100%. I mean, they broke down all the safety protocols, and step by step, you know, Alec Baldwin was one of the producers too. You know, he is one of the people that should have followed and adhered to the safeties. This accident should have never happened, and it's unfortunate. And there's been other accidents like this in other movies that we've learned from, like the Brandon Lee accident when he got killed with the gun on the set as well. And this is why these safety measures have been in place. And the fact that everybody disregarded it, he should not have been permitted to even hold the gun at that point unless he met those protocols. Unfortunately, he didn't. So he should be held liable for his neglect.
So the big news tonight is that Alec Baldwin, in some court filings again, in the civil case, has outlined in more detail their version of what took place. So we want to compare a little bit of his version with what we saw in this recreation. So let's begin by taking a look at this. Baldwin was sitting in a church pew looking at Hutchins. This is according to Baldwin. Baldwin held the gun, which Halls had just announced was safe in his hand. Hutchins was standing camera right to Baldwin's left, next to the camera operator, and looking back and forth between Baldwin to her right and to the camera operator's monitor to the left. But if you look at the video, Alec uses his right hand and places the gun in his left pocket. So it's not just the gun is in my hand, the gun is placed in the pocket. And that's significant here as we go to more of what Alec Baldwin is saying tonight, which is that he says he asked Hutchins what she would like to see him to prepare her camera angle for the scene. And Baldwin is saying he did not perform a cross draw of the gun. He pulled the gun out very slowly, without issue, and held it still before Hutchins began giving directions to him, which directly conflicts with what we saw in the video, which was a very quick cross draw. So let me ask you, Rob, something else we've heard from Alec Baldwin is he said he didn't squeeze the trigger. And he's saying that he pulled the hammer back, but not all the way. His description of pulling it out slowly, holding it still, and then pulling the hammer back slowly, and then the gun fired. Does that sound more like what could have happened or a quick cross draw? Because these are two completely different versions of how this happened. What are your thoughts? Which has more of a ring of truth as to what would cause this gun to go off?
Well, clearly you've got to look at it that anybody that is a suspect in a criminal investigation is going to represent themselves in the best light possible to try to, cause a reasonable doubt as to whether or not they could have done it. And the video recreation, I don't know how accurate that was, but a quick draw, cross draw, quick draw, muscle memory comes into play. A lot of times you don't even know that you got your finger on the trigger if you're not well trained and seasoned. And if he's been playing with this gun, throughout the period of time that they were doing this filming, it's very possible that you're not going to be aware that your finger is on the trigger if you're not trained. I understand he refused to have specific training dealing with the firearm and cross draw, but pulling the hammer back on its own and not having the trigger compressed the gun's not going to go off. It's a combination of both. Compressing the trigger, having the hammer pulled back, releasing the hammer, but having the trigger compressed is going to make that gun fire. And it doesn't work with one or the other. It's a combination of both. And anybody that's handled a firearm, especially a revolver, would know that if you were pulling the hammer back and releasing the hammer, it's kind of a two-motion operation where you've got your finger on the trigger itself and the hammer, and you kind of have to manipulate it so that it is a slow release so that the hammer doesn't come back hard for the firearm to go off. And from what I understand, he refused all training with the firearm, but that gun did not go off without him compressing the trigger at the same time as he released the hammer.
Manuel, what are your thoughts about these two versions now? We've got one where it seems there's an allegation that it's a quick cross draw, pulls back the hammer, gun fires, and Helena Hutchins is killed. Whereas Alec Baldwin saying, no. I pulled it out slowly, held it in my hand, and waited for the directions, pulled the hammer back slowly, not all the way, and then let go, and the gun went off.
Well, unfortunately, I have to disagree with the other investigator. In New York, we had a problem like this. This type of gun, if you go back to the picture of the gun, when he cocks the handle back, you'll see the point that hits the pin of the bullet, which causes the gun to fire. Now, on this type of gun, all right, it's called single action. You pull it back, and if you don't pull it back all the way, the trigger can move forward and fire that bullet. So you don't have to have your finger on the trigger. This actually happened in New York with 38 revolvers and 45 revolvers that they used to use, and this is why they changed to the 9mm, because the cop cocked the gun back just like Alec Baldwin did, part way, and the gun fired. So, on this type of weapon, that is possible. So I believe that part of the story, because I've actually had experience in shooting that type of weapon, and you can't fire it without having to cock all the way back, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we just got a preview of what these trials may look like. This is. I mean, we've going to have a battle of the experts talking about the weapon and how it was trusted. That's why we bring experts on, folks, to get a clear picture of what could potentially happen during the course of this case. Rob Joseph, Manuel Gomez staying with us. When we come back, we're going to open up tonight's unsolved case file and a family looking for answers, looking for justice. It was a family fun weekend down at the beach in Florida, and Johnny Jacks gets shot and killed. When we come back, Johnny's mom's going to join us, and we're going to learn a lot more about this young man and what this family lost and what you can do to help. It is time to open up tonight's unsolved case file, and tonight we have a story. It's beyond heartbreaking, first of all. And it's one that can make you sad and make you angry at the same time, because it shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened. I mean, this is a case where a young man is hanging out with his family. It's literally their family fun weekend down in Florida at the beach, having a good time. What's better than going on those vacations, those breaks where you get together with your family, whether it's your siblings, your parents, your kids, your cousins, whoever it is. Family fun at the beach. I was raised with family fun weekends at the beach. And Johnny Jackson lost his life. Rochelle Aline, a great reporter with our affiliate WFTX down in Fort Myers, Florida, has the story.
He was lovable. He loved to achieve. He was a good friend.
For 22 years, Johnny Jackson was here.
He was like the heart of our family.
His mom, Thomasina Daniels, says that all changed in the wee hours of the morning on July 16th, 2020.
A family fun day weekend. All of my grandkids, everybody was out there.
A family gathering at the Lani Kai in Fort Myers Beach ended with bullets.
About 12 o'clock, my 12-year-old Judah calling me on the phone, screaming, hollering. I'm waking up out of my sleep. Mom, somebody just killed Johnny.
His mother says he was targeted in the past when he was in high school while walking in the Dunbar community.
These boys jumped out of the bushes with guns and start shooting at him.
But she wants to make it clear that the two shootings aren't related.
So they try to make it seem like, because of that incident that, maybe he did something to cause this, that. No. They was all out there having a family fun day. And this happened.
She says one thought has never left her mind.
I just want to know who did it.
But Southwest Florida Crime Stoppers says they still don't have that answer.
Since the beginning, there are certain people that have been on the radar, but no arrests.
And they say people at home can help.
We know that there are people in our community who absolutely know what happened to Johnny. We understand that after something horrible like this happens, say if you were there, that maybe right at first you may not necessarily want to be the one seen talking to law enforcement, maybe because of the chaos of the scene, the closeness that you may have been to that scene or to players that were involved, you may not want to say something right away. Totally get that. If you were there and you have intimate knowledge of what happened that night, that's burned into your memory. You absolutely are going to be able to recall every little detail. Someone lost his life. You're going to remember that.
And they say if nothing else, coming forward to provide information is an act that can help keep yourself and others safe.
Think about his family. Do the right thing for them. If this person had the capacity to just aggressively and boldly take Johnny's life on the beach and then take off, what other violent capacities do they have?
Daniels says between Crime Stoppers, an anonymous donor, and her family, there's now a $33,000 reward connected to this case.
If this was to happen to your loved one, to your son or your daughter, you would want somebody that's seen it to come forth and tell what they know.
And she has this message for whoever pulled the trigger.
You're still alive. You're still alive. You can admit you're wrong, suffer your consequences, and move on with your life. But my son, he's dead. If it's any good, any kind of good in you, admit you're wrong.
Somebody knows someone. Somebody knows something here. No doubt in my mind. Pick up the phone, make the call. 1-800-780-8800. 1-800-780-8477. 1-800-780-8477. That is Crime Stoppers. Investigators need the information. The family deserves justice tonight. Still with us, private investigator, former police officer Rob Joseph. Private investigator, founder of Black Ops Private Investigators, former New York City police officer Manuel Gomez. Also joining us tonight by phone in Tampa, Florida, reporter now with our great affiliate WFTS is Rochelle Aline. And in Fort Myers, Florida, Johnny Jackson's mom, Thomasina Daniels, is with us. Thomasina, I'm going to begin with you. Again, our deepest sympathies to your family. This is horrible, but this is what I want you to do right now, because I know someone knows something. I want you to tell me, the rest of our panel, and everyone else listening, tell me about Johnny. I want to know Johnny tonight, because I want them to know how big of a loss this is, how much of a tragedy this is, and give them a reason to come forward tonight to provide justice for that young man and his family.
Johnny is what we call the knee baby. You know, he's the middle child. So he kind of kept everything balanced within our big family. I got 6 kids, and he's the middle child. So he was the one that, he was like the negotiator. You know, he kept everything balanced. You know, he never chose sides or nothing like that. He would bring us all together, keep us all together, you know. So, I mean, and he was the pillar, because he was the uncle that took the kids fishing, you know, spent time with the rest of the boys, and played and did silly things with my other grandkids. So, yeah, he was that uncle, you know. I mean, he was everything to us, and I would say, you know, if anyone knows anything, please come forth. I have a $33,000 reward, you know. So, and I, you know, just please come forth and help me and my family solve my son's murder.
Rochelle Aline is also with us, WFTS down in Tampa. Rochelle, what have investigators revealed? Are there clues? Are there things that maybe someone was there and they don't even realize they have information? Is there anything that they should try to jog their memory with? Is there anything that investigators have released in this case about this investigation?
You know, at this point, no, and that's really kind of why we're still at this place. You know, you heard that person from Crime Stoppers say, you know, you witness somebody get shot, that's something that you're not going to forget. People know things. They can remember where they were. They probably remember what they were wearing. They probably remember what time it was, what other people were wearing. But the fact of the matter is, while they know of a few people who they know for a fact were there, those folks are not really cooperating, and the rest of the folks still have not come forward. And that's kind of the frustration, is that they know people know things. They know people remember it. We're almost 2 years later, but they know people remember it, but they just have not either come forward or they're not cooperating at this point.
We've run out of time tonight. I'm backed up against a break right here. But again, Thomasina, I want you to know that we're going to continue to stay on this story, and we will be calling you again and again and again until someone picks up that phone and gives the information that investigators need, and you get your answers and justice. Rob Joseph, Manuel Gomez, I know you couldn't chime in tonight, but we appreciate your time as well. Rochelle Aline, WFTS, great reporting. Thank you, everyone. Still ahead.
In Atlanta, Georgia, the director of the smash hit movie Black Panther goes to a bank to withdraw some cash from his own account. He writes a note to the teller, who then calls police. We break down this case with our own law enforcement experts.
I just don't feel comfortable about this transaction.
And in Los Angeles, California, police pursue an armed suspect and take him down with a taser. We take a look at the video during crime time.
$50% off all plans.
And so I said, do you have your ID? He did give me his ID. It was a California ID. But my stomach started turning. I'm like, okay, it just seems odd because you were making a withdrawal, but you hand me a note on the back of a deposit slip. And you keep telling me, look at the note, but you don't want to talk to me. So I'm already okay, you're just acting really it's just weird.
She's right, it's weird. This first story tonight on Crime Time is a little different than the rest, folks. Welcome to our Crime Time segment. Let's bring in tonight's guest. Joining me, retired sergeant for the Nashville Police Department, Melissa Pinkleton. Melissa has 14 years of experience in law enforcement. She joined the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department in 1999. She has worked numerous undercover operations and was part of a specialized police flex unit targeting the most dangerous criminals in the area. And she was awarded countless Officer of the Month awards, several Chief Coin of Excellence awards, and 6 Commendation for Service awards. Also with us tonight, folks, retired Deputy Inspector, there he is, the New York Police Department, Corey Pegues. Corey's been in law enforcement for 21 years, 18 years as a combat medic with the U.S. Army New York National Guard. He's also the author of the book, Once a Cop. Welcome to you both, Corey, Melissa. This first story, again, different than any we've done before. It involves a man named Ryan Coogler. I have a picture of him. Extremely famous. This is the guy who directed Black Panther. I mean, he's a big-time Hollywood director now. Big time. So he went to a bank to withdraw $12,000 in cash from his own account. He handed his ID to the teller, but he also wrote a note to the teller telling the teller that he wanted to withdraw $12,000 and wanted her to count the money somewhere else. He wanted her to be discreet, but he wrote it on a note to her. This is what happened next. Take a look.
What's going on there?
So a customer passed me a note, and so I just told my manager I didn't feel comfortable. So he told me to call police while he, I guess, stalled.
What's on the note, ma'am?
It just says I want to withdraw $12,000. Just be discreet.
And the customer's still there?
Yes.
Is this an actual customer, or are they trying to rob the bank?
They had a debit card, and he inserted it. He gave me a California ID, but I was like, okay, how do you want the cash back? And he's like, just look at the note.
And he had no weapons, correct?
Not that I know of. He just has on black sunshades and a black hat.
Is he a black male, white male?
He's a black male.
So you think it might be fraudulent?
I don't know if it's fraudulent or what, but I just removed myself from the teller line. I'm just standing to the side. I told my manager about it. I told him that on the note he wants $12,000. So he said that just stay right here and call 911.
Where is he? No, let's go get him. He gotta do it. Hey, sir. Do me a favor, man. Come this way. Put your hand behind your back.
Change it on my back. Got it. You got it. Is there any reason y'all doing this, bro?
Give me 1 second. Hold on. Is that him with the grease, right?
No, sir.
204, one other thing.
Fellas, I really should do it.
What's going on, my man?
Trying to put money on my own.
You said what? Yeah, this your phone?
Yeah, sure.
Good job, guys. So then after he inserted the debit card, I said, okay, I forgot what I said, honestly. But anyway, so I said, you want to make a withdrawal? To which account? And he said, he just kept pointing. He's like, look at the note. So I'm like, okay. And so I said, do you have your ID? He did give me his ID. It was a California ID. But my stomach started turning. I'm like, okay, it just seems odd because you were making a withdrawal, but you hand me a note on the back of a deposit slip. And you keep telling me, look at the note, but you don't want to talk to me. So So I'm like already like, okay, like you're just acting really kind of, it's just weird. So then he gave me his ID as a California ID, but I'm still like kind of a bit shook up, so I didn't look at his first and last name. Then on my computer it says a high-risk transaction. So a red box came up. So I'm like, okay. I said, give me one moment. I just have to get my manager, and I had his ID in my hand. He said, oh, he's like, can I have my ID back? So I said, yeah. So I handed him his ID back, and I walked around, and I told my manager, I said, I don't feel comfortable about this transaction. He handed me a note and told me just look at the note, and he wants $12,000. And then so he was like, okay, give me one moment. He was like, let's go around and talk to him. And I said, no, I'm pregnant. Like, I don't know if he got a gun or whatever. Like, and when I did talk to him, he kept pointing at the note. So I'm like, no.
It's a medical assistant that works in my house that prefers to be paid in cash. Every time I make a withdrawal to pay her, you know, because it's a large amount, she works a lot.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't write down on a note how much I want out, and then I don't want it ran through the money counter right there at the desk, the whole bank ends up looking at it because they just hear the money going through the account, and I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe getting money out like that. So every time I go to withdraw it, you know, I put the amount, the account I want to take it out of, and I put my own card in, and then they usually take, I mean, like always just get the money from me. You know what I'm saying? Up to this point, at every Bank of America I ever gone to in my entire life, just never happened.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
So y'all explaining y'all perspective, right?
Yeah.
Y'all the ones with guns and vests.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? What's my perspective? What's my perspective?
I don't know.
At the bank, she never said it was a problem, bro.
Yeah.
I said, hey, is that gonna be okay with you? She said, yeah. I put my own card in, put my own pin in. She asked to see my ID. I gave it to her.
Yeah.
And she goes in the back, and I'm waiting for the and then the people keep coming out. Hey, they taking care of you. They taking care of you. Everything's just taking a little while. Next thing I hear Glocks.
Yeah.
I hear Glocks getting pulled out. That's what I hear. I hear Glocks getting pulled out from unholstering. Hey, sir, can I talk to you for a minute? You understand what I'm saying? So you see my perspective.
This is a first. I've never seen anything quite like this. I don't know what to make of it. I'm fascinated. Melissa, your thoughts about what happened here and what happened, plus how police handled it.
What happened here was the perfect storm of miscommunicative weirdness. The first problem is there wasn't a lot of communication between the bank teller and her manager. He came in there, it's not that he did anything wrong, but is it normal, would you say societally normal for someone to go in and ask for money in that way? When she asks you a question, you don't respond verbally, you just keep pointing to the paper. So that triggered her, something told her that something felt wrong about that. And that's okay, because she has a right to feel that way, and so she deals with people every day. So she went to talk to her manager. Now, at this point, the manager should have went, okay, but he's not robbing you. He gave you his license. He gave you his ID. Most people who are going to rob the bank are not going to give you their ID. They're not going to give you their debit card. So at this point, really, the manager should have taken over to see what was going on and had a conversation. From that point, obviously, they didn't feel comfortable with it. And they went ahead and they hit the button and the police came. And the most beautiful thing about this tape is that the officers were respectful. This man complied, put his hands behind his back. And once the officers had the situation straightened out and everything was under control, he was unhandcuffed and things were explained to him. And I think that was the best part of this, because police officers don't get to know while they're on the way to the bank who the person is, and he's a director and he's famous and he has the money. They just know the information they're getting from the dispatcher.
Corey Pegues, your thoughts of this strange situation?
Well, one, I don't really see any good parts of it, number one. So, I have to answer this also as a police expert and as a black man. You get frustrated when you're being questioned all the time when you're going into supermarkets, stores, and banks. Here's a guy who movie grossed over $1 billion. For the life of me, I can't believe that this black woman that lives in Atlanta doesn't know who Ryan Coogler is. Every black person in America has seen Black Panther and know that he was the director and one of the producers He had every single right to feel the way he do. I think that Bank of America should fire the manager and also fire the teller. If you have a teller, because her stomach hurts, she calls the cops for a robbery, she probably need to work at McDonald's. This was really bad, and it could have went left. We've seen so many instances of Black men, Black women, even other ethnicities where the cops are called and things go bad because of misinformation. This was really bad. This gentleman came into the bank. He put his debit card in. She asked for ID. He gave her his California state ID. The simplest thing is to match the ID up with the debit card. But more important, Melissa and Vinnie, he put his PIN number in there. I mean, how many things did this Black man have to do before the teller said, yes? You know, so for America, yeah, there are some Black millionaires in America that take $10,000, $12,000 out of the bank. So it's just frustrating, Vinnie, that this happened to this gentleman. And I hope that Bank of America really do something. They probably have to have some sensitivity training at that location.
All right, Melissa Pinkleton, Corey Pegee staying with us. When we come back, more crime time. LAPD pursuing an armed suspect.
Don't delay. Call our helpline now.
Gun. 406 on your coast. 450 me out the gun. Foot pursuit. Eastbound Main Street. Approaching Hancock. It's gonna be Sergio Barreto. Gun. Drop the gun. Drop the gun. Drop it, bro. Drop it, bro. Drop the gun. 406, we're gonna be running westbound in the. Officer needs help. I got it. Give me your hand. What are you shooting? What are you tripping on? Push me up against the wall. Don't even have to, bro. Hey. Right. Tito. Dog, I didn't even have nothing on me, fool. Hey, I'm telling you, bro. Put your arm behind your back, bro. Bro, put your arm behind your back, bro. Why the you guys shoot at me for, dog? 406, 19 Johnson, 19 Johnson. Hey, put your arm behind your back. Dude. Put your arm behind your back. Good to go. I'm gonna try to Hey. I'm gonna tell you what you gotta do, dog. You better let me go, dog. You better let me go, dog. Let me go, dog. Why you Chase you, bro. Why you guys shooting me for, dog? Chase him.
Los Angeles Fire Department paramedics transported Barreto to a local hospital where he was treated for the taser strike sustained during the incident.
All right, how difficult are these foot chases and what the LAPD was dealing with here? Corey Pegues, I'll begin with you.
Foot chases are hard, Vinnie. You have a bunch of equipment on, and especially when you're chasing somebody with a gun, as they turn that corner, you don't know once you pivot around that corner where this guy, did he stop to ambush you? But these cops did a good job, except for at the end. Tactically, I don't know how they let this guy get away from him. My partner and I would have been tackling this guy to the ground after shooting at him, knowing that he had a weapon.
Yeah, I was surprised there. Melissa?
Everything that Corey said, nighttime chases are a little bit harder. If you're working in subsidiary housing, you got to watch out for the clotheslines because you don't want to get choked. But yeah, the most disturbing thing was the end of the video and how long it took them to get him into custody. He should have been put into custody in at least the first 10 seconds. I'm not really sure what the delay was on that. But they're tricky. You're balancing your radio, and you don't want to sound too crazy on the radio because then your boys are going to come after you when it's all over with, and they're going to make fun of you, and they're going to say you sounded ridiculous on the radio. So you have to balance that too. See how that goes?
Absolutely. Great analysis tonight. Melissa Pinkleton, Corey Pegues, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll see you again real soon. When we come back, I need your help. Don't go